pike here. Should be able to choose.
So while we're waiting, I do have a question, if you'll field them.
Yeah, sure.
So a few times lately with the holding the arms up.
Yeah.
So the back, the shoulders, they feel okay. They don't feel tension, but I'm feeling tension right like in between where the tricep and the bicep and the shoulder meets.
Yeah, so down in the under the head of the bicep.
Maybe not even under it, but just above the bicep. It's like where the piece of the shoulder would hit the bone or where it crosses over.
Oh, well, you have a tendon there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
But,
yeah.
so if I flex it, it's like right ahead of the tricep, but it's it's like at the end of the muscle of the shoulder.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So that's where you have a ligament or probably the ligament there. So any reason you might have strained it?
I don't think it's straining a particular side because it's on both sides evenly. So
yeah, but that can happen with work or weightlifting or something.
But it just feels like that whole area is generally the tense spot in my arm now, instead of the tricep. But it does feel muscular. It's like I know where the tendon is going and the ligament is going over, but it's like at the bottom of the base of the shoulder muscle.
Right. So does it feel painful or tingly or achy or just tires fast?
It's
or
like the most tired part of where I hold my arms now.
Yeah. So at the end of a session, it's more of a just noticing where things are tired.
Yeah, yeah. I think before my shoulders burned or arms burned, and it was more universal, and now it's
sure
all the others
more local.
maybe have cleared up, and that's what's left. But it seems odd that I don't think I'm using that bit of muscle. I must be.
Right. Well, if you think about, sometimes there's something wrong in your car, so I don't know, loose belt or something like that. Something rattling, and people will report to the mechanic that I don't, it only happens when I'm driving slow, as if it's a transmission or an engine problem, as opposed to recognizing that, yeah, well, when the car is going faster, you don't hear that kind of sound. So it's not that it's not happening then, you just don't hear it when you're going over 40 or whatever. And so it could be that you've resolved enough other things around the standing that let's say weak part of your arm is more obvious because the other things have quieted down, which is a good sign. Like your practice is quieting down excess actions of the body. And then similarly, if sort of a two-pronged answer, related, I guess, is that as you relax appropriately things that weren't actually necessary to hold the posture, other things tire and come into awareness. And then in time, they may release. And then you say, hey, now I'm feeling it in my mid-back or my abs or my collarbone area, the pec minimus or something. And so it's just a progression. That's why I wanted to just try and figure out if it's like a problem or a pain or just like, yeah, here's what I've been noticing.
Yeah, I think it's, just a noticing of where the tightness is.
Right. So the two pronged there is that you can be releasing things around it, and then something comes into awareness more. But you can also be developing and therefore tiring, right? So through new actions, you can be, tiring something. I don't know which might be the case in your case. But if it's not striking you as a problem and it's more an interest or a curiosity, I would just monitor it,
Yeah, it feels like it's developing and it's larger and harder. It's like I haven't developed that area of muscle previously.
Yeah. What I would do is I would, when you're in the gym, try and work that area out as a focused practice, and see, so that's what this exercise does. It works that part of the muscle or that muscle group or that muscle region, and then see, can I move the way I used to be able to move? Does it tire? Does it work? Like, what's the functionality of it?
Okay.
And probably you'll put together like, oh, the functionality's fine. I'm just being made aware of it lately in my standing practice. Okay. Probably because other things quiet down.
Yeah, I can feel it just moving my arms through an arc.
Yeah.
That's where it's bunching. It's like the other places give and it doesn't give.
Yeah. Yeah, it's unlikely to be like a nerve thing on both sides,
It doesn't feel nerve, yeah.
I would bet it's more connective tissue than muscle, because you're not likely to feel like the lowest layer of the muscle with that sort of granularity as opposed to the whole muscle. Right. And, in these Neja Chuan arts, we want to be feeling the connective tissue or using it more than the soft tissues. But the connective tissues are deep enough not to be innervated in most cases.
Okay.
So you don't, feel them and tire them. They work or they don't work.
Okay.
Okay, it looks like Darcy's on too. Morning.
Hey, Chris. Hey, Darcy. Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
When I relax, like you're recommending releasing tension, eventually I feel like I'm melting and relaxing into proper form. And then I hit kind of a structural problem. Like I'll release tension and then it'll be like a bone problem. Or something, maybe it's a muscle problem that I can't release without help, like massage or something like that.
Okay, yeah.
Kind of gets in my head because it's like, I feel like I'm releasing into the proper shape and then it's like, oh, it's a roadblock. And for one, it's mentally distracting and it's also kind of physically distracting from a sensory perspective because I feel like the tension that I can't relax just from my own volition. Do you have any advice regarding that?
Yeah. Well, to point at one thing, the idea isn't to make a shape. The idea is to, let's say, embody some qualities, if that's a way to put it, right? To be a way. And if you are that way, if you are embodying those things, they're probably going to occur in a certain shape, right? So, for example, if you were going to just, without looking at any blueprints from an aerospace company, and you were just going to design a aircraft to do some, whatever the task is, fly high, be aerobatic, fly fast, fly in the mountains, whatever, carry a lot of weight, whatever it is. Once you figure out those design constraints, physics is going to dictate a final shape. Anybody designing for those relatively constrained requirements are going to arrive at a similar shape. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna show up with a shoebox shaped airplane. Like that's just physics is going to determine that. So we're looking to not so much just, hey, do this shape I'm doing, and guess what? You're going to feel these things when you do it. It's really more, all right, let's try and feel these things. And you're going to find that the place that the shape that those things being felt looks like is going to be quite similar to mine. Now, having said that, if you're going to start by designing an airplane, it probably makes sense to start with a triangle or a wedge or a pencil or a cylinder, like something, if you start, not with a cube, that's sensible. So you could start standing like this, and then eventually it should, melt into what we're doing. But you can also kind of model a shape and say, okay, I'm probably in the ballpark, right?
Yeah.
So what it can identify for you is things like, oh, that's the thing that's overworked in my other workout. That's the thing that's underworked in my other work. That's the thing that I was going to tell my massage therapist to get after. That's the thing that's, showing me the effects of my Crohn's disease, or my lack of sleep or the tension at work, so we can go through. This can happen in meditation too, or qigong, but here we're doing each one. When we're doing a standing practice, it can help reveal to us something that I'm not going to get through in this practice. I still need to have that fracture heal, or I still need the therapist to keep working on that, or I need to lift more of these weights in that way to make that, so if your response to that is to be disappointed, like, hey, I met this thing and I can't get through it, that's your choice to be frustrated by. If I don't know if I'm putting words in your mouth by saying frustrated, but
I would say it's distracting, and it's a little bit frustrating, but also I've become accustomed to it because it's been the same experience for a couple of years where I get to the same point and then my hip is like, everything about me wants to keep melting into this posture, but there's like a lock up in one of my hips, and it's just distracting because it feels like a roadblock to.
Well, if your doctor sends you for an x-ray and you go in and get the x-ray or MRI or something, and the technician says, aha, we now know exactly the issue is. You don't say, thank God we're done. Now I know what it is. You then go and fix it somewhere else. Like, the imaging isn't going to fix it. But you're probably grateful, like, oh, I could see that's what I thought it was, and okay, I gotta have more vitamin D and calcium or something, okay, great. So, the standing might not be the thing that resolves that hip thing.
Yeah, I got you.
But it might be the imaging of it.
Diagnostic.
Yeah, it might be, right. And I would argue, generally speaking, it's not going to hurt it, and it may help it, depending on the actual issue. But if you have something you need to get done, like your grocery list, and you're going to forget to pick up whatever you need to pick up, and so you're just repeating it to yourself all morning, if you go write it down, on your shopping list, it should probably leave your brain now. If it keeps bothering your brain after you've written it down, there's no point in having written it down, right? Yeah. So if you're melting and you get to the hip and you say, well, that's the thing, it's not quite resolved yet. Okay, you have the information. There's no need to keep being bothered by it. That's where you rededicate, reorient other massages, diet, exercise, stretches, rest, health stuff to address it in the time that it takes, you know, and you're old enough that it could be a thing that's not getting better. That's just who you are, right? And it could be, you know, a long or medium term kind of recovery or management of a thing. And it certainly could be oh, you just got to get this better once you get the right therapist who can really get in there and, you know, that's fantastic, you know. But I wouldn't be bothered that you're still in the X-ray office and it's not fixed.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. That is helpful. Thank you.
Great. How was that, Chris, doing a long stand that we didn't really vary?
It was interesting to have that diagnostic. Yeah. I did a little squirming. It's definitely right down at the bottom. That's where it's muscular. Yeah. So. Yeah,
I would try and get yourself a clear way to describe it physiologically, anatomically, even if it's a couple guesses, and then get Colin to give you some exercises that target that range of motion, circulation, stretching, strength, and endurance, right? And then that's your self-assessment program for, do these tissues work the way they're supposed to? And if they do, okay, then they're just the thing that are bearing the burden during standing, because other things have, you know, released around it. And you know, certainly could be an issue, like a new issue that's coming into your awareness, and then what Colin gives you will help with that too.
I think it could be the last part of the ice cube to melt too, because I noticed that like bicep and tricep used to be hard, and you know, when we did the gunting it would be painful, and now it's like rubber.
Right.
So
yeah.
So all of this stuff is totally relaxed, but I haven't really done that on the shoulder. It hasn't given out yet. So
yeah.
So that's my roadblock.
Yeah.
Sifu Colin, it's interesting because at the beginning of the class, I asked him the same kind of question about the lower shoulder. That's where the sticking point is right now. It's not my back. It's not my arms. It's right here at the base of the shoulder across the arm. But it's
another thing to think about is that if we think of this sort of melting process as you know, it's like any of our other martial education, like, I've been doing this, I'm getting better at melting because I've been practicing my Zanswang. And so if I skip ahead 6 months, I should be 6 months better at it. And if I skip ahead 2 years, I should be about 2 years better at it. So more melted and, you know, more relaxed, all that kind of stuff. And so that's true on one side of the equation, but during the period of learning, I'm also living. And so I might understand better how to do it, or have glimpsed it more often or more comprehensively or more confidently or more consistently, but I'm still living. And I helped my friend move bookcases full of books the other day, and or whatever, you know, I was out in the garden this weekend. And so the living might reintroduce tension and challenges, and not just the wear of living, but the duration of living, meaning we're getting older, and that's its own kind of problem, you know. So it's not a strict thing to say in 10 years I'll be 10 years better. I'll be a 10-year older person with 10 years more of wear, who hopefully, because that part's definite, right? The wear and the aging are definite. The best I can do is also get 10 years wiser and better, right? So you want to be a little fair to yourself in that estimation too, you know, in terms of we think about melting and stuff, you know, like, well, okay, you know, this should have melted away by now. That's a way to look at it, but also by now means, you know, you were out in the garden and you got a new bicycle that's not adjusted, and you know, you've taken a few hikes with your new friend this week, and you know, so there's other challenges to the body.